Hello and welcome everybody to the third Toon of a Kind podcast. Welcome, Toonsters. And today I have a very special guest with us, and we have Eddie Bowley from his channel Eddache here with us today. Hello, Eddie.
Hello there. How's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good.
Oh, glad to hear that. So, you might have recently seen a few of Eddie's videos, which congratulations on hitting 1 million views on Who Shot Mr. Burns, or How to Solve Who Shot Mr. Burns. But his more recent video was done on the character design of SheRa, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to have him here on the podcast, because I wanted to have someone who could genuinely appreciate the show as I do, because if you've been a fan of the channel or the podcast for the last few episodes, you know that I like to keep things positive around here, and there's just too much negativity already on the internet, and I'd rather talk about things I like.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's pretty much the motivation for me doing my video essays in the first place. Like, I only started in October of last year, and the Mr. Burns video, as you mentioned, was the first one I did. And it was just kind of off the back of, I was just sick of all this why blank sucks kind of videos. And it's just a lot of, like, just nasty toxicity, or just, I mean, criticism is fine. Like, I'm all fine for that. But it's when people are just like, I'm just going to find reasons to hate whatever it is. I don't care what it is. I'm just going to hate it regardless. I just find that just disgusting. And it unfortunately generates a lot of views. People love to watch, you know, people just dunk and shit all over other shows just because, you know, it's that kind of mob mentality, I guess. But, I mean, they probably do have their own grievances with the show, but sometimes they just go into it with like, well, I haven't heard of this show, but based on this video, I won't watch it anymore. So yeah, off the back of that, I was just very, very keen to make videos that were, you know, and I'm not afraid to be critical, but still at least positive, or trying to see benefit of the doubt, or trying to see from other points of view, and just trying to, I guess, get an appreciation of what goes into said show or said movie. You know, so because I mean, I'm a writer, and I obviously want to be a better writer, and I find the way to do so is to, like, just research in certain aspects of how certain shows are made, or what went into maybe one particular facet of a show, and I'm hoping that in doing so, the more I'm researching and learning about these subjects, it's just improving my own skill set as a writer, and, you know, hopefully one day I can call myself, you know, a TV show writer. You know, maybe I can have my own show on Netflix, you know.
Yeah, it's good to have dreams like that. Like and it's always good to sort of grow and have, like, a goal and expose yourself to the new ideas, because you never know what new things you're exposed to will sort of slightly change your brand or the way you make your art, whether that be writing or actual creative art like drawing. And so it's a good thing to get into that and sort of to expose yourself to all these new things. And that's sort of the reason why I started, you know, my channel, because I was sick of the whole angry video gamer trope kind of thing. So when I started making video game reviews last year, I believe, it was based off the premise of, but is it fun? I didn't care about whether or not it made you angry. I just wanted to know, if you played this game, would you enjoy your time with it? And, like, on a scale of how fun it would be versus how much money you would spend, would it be fun? Would you enjoy your time with it? So I understand that was a very subjective thing, but I would also take into the fact that this might not be your cup of tea, and if it isn't, you probably shouldn't buy it in the first place. But if you're wondering if you would like it, and so that's where the whole BIIF, or beef as it stands for, but is it fun?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I kind of had that reaction with the SheRa video I did. So I did a video on SheRa focusing on the character design, because it was, and I mean, I guess on the one hand it's unsurprising, but on the other hand it is surprising that people would have such a level of grievance with the redesigns. Considering it's a show that, you know, hasn't been on the air for about 20 to 30 years, no, 20. I just wanted to. Ooh, I've lost my train of thought. Where was I?
Well, it hasn't been on.
I just kind of wanted to, like, just kind of drill down what went into those choices, and no, I've actually completely lost my train of thought. Sorry. What was I just saying before I derailed myself?
You were mentioning just how, like, it hasn't been on television for a couple decades now, 2 decades and a half almost, and I think you might have mentioned this in your actual video, but even the creators of HeMan and SheRa even said it has to adapt or it will die. Like HeMan and SheRa will be lost.
That was Val Staples, who's actually one of I believe he's like the admin of HeMan.org, which is like the biggest, most active like collective of like HeMan and SheRa fans. And like he was approached by the makers of the Power of Grayskull documentary, which was just like invaluable to my research for this video. They spoke to him about like, you know, his views on, you know, just generally obviously the history of the HeMan and the show and all this stuff. And like, yeah, the documentary itself nicely rounds out with his comments of being, you know, shows have to evolve, shows have to, if we don't remake them, if we don't reboot them, they will die. They will just fail. They'll just fade into obscurity and they will die. And it's important, since this show has been so important to people who watched it in the 80s. It's just a tragic shame to not have that same thing be shared with other generations and allow it to define them going forward. And that's just been a very interesting kind of point of contention where people are saying like the old one is better, and it's like the old one's still there. Like, no one's taken that away from you. It's just,
it hasn't destroyed your childhood. Like, nobody can destroy your childhood but you. You're the sole person who can grant that power.
Right there. It's just fine. You know, if you're going to get this upset that a brand new show has is taking the characters you're familiar with and run off with them in a new direction, then maybe your childhood hasn't strayed too far from you, because you're sounding pretty childish as it is.
Yeah, I think you hold it as too much of a part of who you are now rather than a part of what helped make you who you are now.
Exactly, yeah. It's just, I mean, like you're saying about like trying to experience new things. Like, you know, as I said, I want to become a writer. I am a writer, and I want to become a better writer. And I found like too often I might be dwelling in like the old and the familiar, the comfortable stuff. You know, I'll be rewatching Simpsons or Futurama,
the easy, low-hanging fruit.
Like, yeah, and it's like, you know, this is stuff I'm familiar with, and I like rewatching it, and it's still fun to rewatch it. Because, you know, these shows are still funny. They're still like these moments that will still forever get you. But as a result, I just realized that there's a wave of shows. You know, TV doesn't stop for me. You know,
yeah, time does not stop.
Going. It's going to keep on making stuff, and it's a case of, well, I can either stay where I am, stay in my comfort, and continue to consume the same things and like never evolve and never change, or I can just, you know, take in the new stuff. I don't have to like certain new stuff, you know, but it's a fact of, if I give it a shot, I might like it, I might not. But the point is, nothing bad will come out of trying something new, because ultimately you're still expanding your horizons. And especially me as a writer, and I don't know why I keep dropping the fact that I'm a writer, but the point is, the point is like, you know, I can get, you know, you can sometimes get stuck in a rut or writer's block, because you can't think of what to do or how to get out of a certain situation in your scripts. But if you broaden your mind more on like areas that you've never experienced before, then maybe those influences will help you get through those times. So that's why it was like so important to me to start like watching a ton of stuff. And like, yeah, it was like as of the end of 2017, I just made it kind of my dedicated mission to be like, basically I worked out that all the movies I loved, all the TV shows that I loved, and basically all the media that I consumed was predominantly cartoons. So it's like, well, then I might as well just stop trying to keep up to date Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad, you know, since I only watch one season, then stop because it's a chore to watch.
I'm quite similar with my watching and viewing habits. I prefer animated film and television, and so I do watch a few live action things, but they have to be things,
of course,
oddly enough, that originate from cartoons, like the new Sabrina, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, or Riverdale, things like that I'm sort of familiar with, but are also new and different. Like, they are vastly different from their source material in a lot of ways, and that's good. Like, And even to the point where you were saying you have to like broaden your horizons, I was once told by a teacher of mine that you should, if you're attempting to be an actor or a voice actor or anything, even a writer as well, because we were also doing writing classes, you should watch and consume things that you even yourself do not enjoy, but don't consume them for the fact of watching them for enjoyment. Watch them for why you don't like them. Watch for the things that you don't like, because then you'll notice patterns. You'll say, oh, the reason I don't like that shot is because the color and the lighting is off. So maybe I should focus more on lighting and color in what I do. Maybe it's too dark and you don't like dark scenes. So there's a lot that you can learn by even watching and paying attention, like even to a deeper level of the shows that you don't like.
Yeah, learn from other people's mistakes.
Yeah, that's a very big one. And speaking of like the whole change for the, like, you know, changes from absorbing change, I do actually have a few questions and things I have, but one of them is that what is your opinion on the fact that they've taken SheRa or Adora, and instead of making her He-Man's sister, she's now an orphan? I mean, I assume she was also an orphan in the original series. I'm not as knowledgeable on SheRa, the original series, but they haven't really brought in the fact that she might have family yet. So how do you feel about them sort of departing from He-Man slightly?
Well, I think for starters, I don't think He-Man's off the cards. I don't know what the situation is with He-Man per se. I feel like I don't think it's a total write-off. Maybe after season 2 of SheRa, we may learn about season 1 of He-Man. Maybe.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
But I don't think it's 100% off the card. But of the original series I have watched, and like, there's a lot of episodes. They made like, I think it was something like 60 episodes in one season, and they made 2 seasons worth. So no, I am not watching all those episodes.
That's a phenomenal amount as well, because usually, like 52 was the maximum, because that's one Saturday. You know, that's one episode per Saturday.
That's pretty much what they were going for, like one a week every week for over a year, and that's pretty much that's why the show has the sort of the style that it does. That kind of like very stiff, very repeated animation and stuff like that. So like, I understand, because I understand into making it, I understand why it looks that way. So I appreciate, obviously the huge mammoth task the animators had at the time to try and produce that many, half an hour as well, not like 10-minute shows. They were half an hour.
Yeah, it was basically crunch time year round.
Yeah. And that would have been like their entire staff working on this. Yeah, there's a lot to go through. But for what I do understand, He-Man doesn't pop up that often. He's like there at the beginning to kind of introduce, almost like the passing of the torch, like to introduce, here's the new show, here's SheRa, the long lost sister.
Yeah, the connected worlds thing, just to be like,
about up to that.
If somebody pops in, this is why, because the worlds are connected, sort of thing.
Yeah. And then, he does. Yeah, he pops in every now and again, and it's a handful of cameos, but obviously the show wants to be its own thing, and it's largely a SheRa show. And even like the creators at the time were basically told, okay, now that we've established like the main characters, go wild, go have fun, make it your world now. And that's that's great. 'Cause you don't want to be so like pinned down to what's been established before. You want to be able to express yourself and tell your own stories, which is exactly what the new SheRa show does. Yeah, it has been given kind of that free reign. It's been given. Noel Stevenson describes it as having a sandbox and a select number of toys. There's certain toys they're not allowed to touch, or maybe not allowed to touch yet, but they have their own group of toys. Do what you want, go wild, have fun. And the fact that they've made it an orphan, it's I think there's more to be learned, and I think that's just one of the fascinating aspects of the show, that there's a lot of sort of a lot of history to the show that we've only ever seen like small nuggets of. There's the fact that she's not the first SheRa. There's been prior SheRas.
Yeah, and many of them.
And so she's just the next one to take the mantle. I mean, this could be the way it could connect itself more directly to the original SheRa. you know, what if one of the twists is she's just the descendant of the original Adora? I mean, that might be a bit of fan servicey, but you know, it's not off the cards.
Yeah, I mean, they have that lineage there, right? They've established that there has been many before her, and it's been 1,000 years since the last one has happened. So that's a long time. That's a really large gap of sort of lore that they've left to play with.
Exactly. I mean, me saying they're connected, I mean, that would also mean that, you know, Glimmer, Catra, Entraptor, all these characters are also descendants. That might be a bit too much, but my point being that there's still a lot of lore and a lot of history of this show that we don't know about yet, including Adora's parents. So that whole aspect could still come in. But the fact is, I don't think it affects the show at all. I think whether or not, even if they told us right at the beginning she was He-Man's sister, I don't think that would make that huge a difference because the show is its own thing.
I think it would have
it's telling its own stories with its own characters, and it's just telling its own, you know, wonderfully strong stories. I'm happy for it just to do that. I don't need He-Man. I wouldn't hate it, but I don't. He's not required.
Yeah, we're strong, independent princesses, and we don't need no He-Man. Right, but that's kind of exactly what it was. I feel like if they would have sort of shoehorned He-Man in there, it would have actually felt shoehorned, and it would have been like, well, if he's not going to be around or there's no series, like, why drop that sort of nugget of lore when it doesn't need to happen yet? It would have been like, some people might have thought it would have been a red herring because there's no connections there, or maybe it would have just been like, oh, well, that was added in because maybe the He-Man or SheRa Bible says they have to be connected somehow. And so I think if that's going to be a reveal in a later series, or a later season, which they have stated that they have 4 arcs already like mapped out, so that could be part of one of the arcs.
It's possible, yeah. I mean, they could be going like, I mean, I know it's all been subsequently cancelled now, but the Marvel Defenders series, you know, they could be walking down that kind of path of having, you know, maybe a season or 2 of SheRa, like establish the world with her, you know, with a character that is. I mean, despite the, you know, the apparent outrage, SheRa still had a far lesser fan base than He-Man ever. So maybe this is their way of like, right, let's establish the new world and the new lore with SheRa, lesser known than He-Man, but that way we have more freedom to do what we want with it. Then once we've established that, they could then introduce He-Man, they could introduce other worlds, and start to then maybe cross them over in like a joint adventure type series. You know, that could be freaking awesome. You know,
or the crossover movie, right?
The War of... say what?
Or the crossover movie that sometimes happens between certain things, like the whole Timmy Turner, Jimmy Neutron Power Hour kind of deal.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, it could just be like the War of Eternia, you know, or something like that. You know, there could be, it could be something. We don't know yet. But I wouldn't be if they don't do that, if they just stick to pure SheRa, I'd also be totally fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, the show so far has got, just like SheRa, has some very powerful legs to it so far. It's going in a pretty great direction. And one of the questions...
I love what they've done with the... I love what they've done with the characters. I mean, I want to sort of stress that I won't pretend to be a fan of the original series.
Neither am I.
I enjoyed He-Man.
Not into SheRa, because very much, I assume, I'm not sure how old you are, but with my age, it was definitely boys like boys shows, girls have their girls shows, and you just don't cross over. You know, you're a boy, you watch boy things.
Exactly. That was pretty much the mentality that was unfortunately distilled to me as a kid. You know,
I've heard that SheRa, the original series, was a decent show that had some good moments in it.
There has some like remarkable moments. There's a allegory for the Nazis book burning in one episode, and like you get these people like on YouTube who are saying boo, rah, boo, boo, boo. You shouldn't put politics into cartoons. You know, SheRa has all this gay representation, and like, did you watch the original show? And have you watched any cartoon show ever? It's full of political themes. Everything's a political theme. You can't hide from it.
Yeah, I mean, even in one of my absolute favorite cartoons, in the theme song, it's political. In Animaniacs, they bring up the presidents and other people. Like, straight from the get-go, they let you know politics is going to be a thing. Now, that show is more about pop culture references, so obviously they're going to take moments of time from when they were active, but that's still political, because they're still viewing it through their political lens and making fun of things that happen. So,
absolutely.
No matter what you do, like, political... lean, I'll say, it comes through in work. Like, people will add it into their work because that's an expression of who they are and their views on the world. To say, oh, don't put your politics in my cartoons or my games, it's basically saying, well, don't be an individual and don't make things.
Yeah, I think it's don't put your politics into my cartoon shows. I want my politics in the cartoon shows.
Yeah,
they have no problem with their own politics. They have no problem with, like, dystopia. They have no problem with, people who hate everything and everyone. They love that. But if we have a girl who's having a great time, just being herself without having to get her tits out in the then like, oh, boo-rah, politics, rump.
Oh yeah, that's a good thing to call.
That was unintentional.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's a great thing to call the overly zealous negative people against SheRa's, the boo-rahs. Just going through booing everything.
So as I was saying, like I won't pretend to be the biggest fan of the original series, but I love what they've done with the new series, because, like, in the original show, the premise was that she was the sister of HeMan, long lost, and this entire time she'd been working for the evil Horde. She'd been working for the villain, and she'd been brainwashed. And then all it took was for her to be snapped out of it, and she was immediately on the hero side. All past sins forgiven. She's now fighting for the good guys, and that was kind of
a very blind turnover, but very quick turnover. Yeah,
it's just kind of like the kind of just a way to free up the guilt aspect, because I guess they didn't want to have too much emotional, complex stuff of like, what horrors have I committed? What atrocities have I done? Under this spell, I have to do something to overcome this stuff. But with the new show, it really does play with, but what if? Let's scrap the brainwash stuff. That's just to kind of paint over the problems. Like, what if we actually dwelled in that aspect? Someone who has been, like, tricked to working for the villains, and instead of brainwashed, just essentially, like, raised and taught by the villains and just assumed to be correct.
Well, that's
and
a very
she's
real
thrust into
like analogy, right? Because it's an analog to real life, because even when there's wars, each side is told that they are doing the right thing and that the other side is the evil that's trying to stop them from living their lives. And like you were saying, it's great in that way, because Adora was not brainwashed. She was brought up in a place called the Fright Zone, in a society called the Horde. And it's very silly to hear them talk about these places like they're like legitimate, nice places to be. The Fright Zone's not terrifying, right? And so, you do get that she genuinely believed she was doing something good, but when she herself saw that it wasn't the good that she was being told it was, she learned to put the fact that she has a voice and a power to change things to a better use than just the use she was told that was the good. Because not all good you're told is good. Sometimes there is an agenda.
And it's wonderful because it creates such powerful storytelling of her being, like, torn between her allegiances. There's obviously such a deep connection to Catra, and the relationship between Adora and Catra is just phenomenal.
It's very deep.
It makes the show. It truly makes the show. Like, I think the show would be so lacking without that, and that's non-existent in the original series. She just flips sides, and that's it. Like, everyone agrees to those terms, and they proceed going forward with that. There's no question of, like, but what if? And no, try and join our side. I know you're a good person. You don't need to do these.
Yeah, both sides.
I think they at least
Catra and Adora had those moments of, even Adora up until closer to the end of season 1, she was still like, I can still help, like, I still care for you, I still care about you, like, I don't want to see you go down the wrong path. But Catra had the much more a heavy arc with her character, realizing that when she lost Adora, it wasn't lost. She made a choice to abandon her, and then she had to deal with that abandonment while still being sent on missions to go find her. So every time they met up, she was basically trying to convince her to come back and be her family again. But then when Quechua realized that Adora wasn't going to make that decision, she understood that this whole time she's been alone. She's always been number 2, and now it's time for her to take her position as number 1.
This is it. It's like, and you get allusions to abuse and that kind of stuff as well. And it's like, yeah, it's just so engrossing, and I just devoured the show when it came.
I actually rewatched it again before this podcast. I rewatched the entire season 1 a couple nights ago, and I rewatched your episode on the character design just so I could refresh myself on your opinions and what you had to say.
So, I mean, yeah, that was kind of the mentality I went in with the character design video, was that I wanted to be respectful to the original show. Because I know, obviously, there is a huge fan base for it, and obviously the huge outcry for how dare they change anything.
Yeah.
So I knew I needed to be respectful, but at the same time, I wanted to point out, just because you like the show doesn't make this one bad. I mean, you don't have to like it. That's fine. That's up to you. I'm not there to convince you to like this show. But what I wanted to explore was why they had to change the character designs, and it's because they were based on dolls. They were based on the same body shapes across the board, with only one black character who's barely in it. She's in like 2 or 3 episodes max, and she doesn't do anything other than get caught.
That's bad.
And yeah, so
was that Natasa?
Had to change it.
Was that Natasa?
Yeah, Natasa, yeah.
That's funny, because now in the original, or in the new series, The Princess of Power, her entire princess power is about capturing other people. She's a net tosser. A net tosser.
Yes.
And I think that's a hilarious jab at the old, like, this character's just the, token character. They get caught. Haha, Daphne from Scooby-Doo. And then now in the new series, she's like, I have powers. They're kind of awesome. They're energy fields. I can trap people. I'm no longer the one being trapped. I do the trapping.
Yeah. So, and even then, like, even in the new show, she still has a very small role. Like, she's like, her and Spinnerella. I probably said that wrong. Can't remember. Sorry, but they've
no, Spinnerella and Natasa.
They have
or Natasa.
It is Spinnerella. Yeah.
Yep.
They have a relatively minor role. They don't really get to do anything until like the finale, and it's great. It's great when it is, because you get this whole like team effort thing, and that's always just super cool. Yeah. You've seen them individually display their powers, and then you see them all using them, not just like at the same time, but like in conjunction with one another. You see. You see one throw out the flowery vines, and Bo like skates across them firing bows, and it's just like, that's so cool. That's so cool to see them.
It's nice to see that, like, not only are their individual powers powerful themselves, but when they come together, even at the end of season 1, when they all come together, even SheRa starts to glow with a new light and a radiance, because they're more powerful together than they ever were separate.
Exactly. Do you know, just a complete sidetrack fun fact, so when the Incredibles came out, at the same time, the Fantastic Four movie, the very first one, the first one Fox made, with Chris Evans as the Human Torch. Yeah. They were making that movie at the time, and they went to see the Incredibles, and obviously the Incredibles is like a prestige to the Fantastic Four, so it made sense that they would go see it. And then it has that whole like fight sequence in the city when they're fighting against the Syndrome's big massive ball. And they noticed that the characters were combining their powers together. It was like, one would throw up the shield, and so Dash would then run whilst he's inside the shield, creating this kind of like powerful wrecking. And then you'll have like I've forgotten the names. The stretchy girl,
Elastigirl,
make like a trampoline for Elastigirl. Thank you, for Mr. Incredible to bounce off, and and they're mixing their powers up. They're not just like individually fighting, and so the makers of the Fantastic Four were like, oh shit, we don't do that. We just have them like fight Doctor Doom using their individual powers, not fighting together as a family, as a team. So they actually had to rewrite the ending of the scene to include that kind of mixing up of their powers. Didn't help. It was still a bad film, but you know, they tried.
Yeah, right. Once again, it didn't do well. It wasn't good, but you can learn from watching other things and hopefully adapt and make yours better. Like, I can't remember that Fantastic Four movie because it just didn't impact me all that much. But just out of the gate, it's like, well, what if Susan Storm throws a bubble around the thing and then Mr. Fantastic creates a slingshot, and, you know, then you get Johnny Storm pulling the slingshot back, and you launch now like a giant slingshot, the Thing, at a bad guy in a force field, and he just that would be amazing. Everybody's coming together, helping out, great. And it's like an Uber attack.
You see this sort of stuff all the time in like superhero films, especially like you know, like in the first Avengers film, you see like Iron Man using his projector beam against Captain America's shield, who uses it as like a laser beam to tilt it around and take out several dudes in one go.
Very Zelda-like as well.
Always, it's so like. Yeah, exactly. It's so cool to see happen. You see them individually display their powers, and then you see them use them together because they're stronger together, and that's so cool. And so that makes such a kick-ass finale of season 1, and like makes me feel like yes, bring on season 2 because I want more of this. And more princesses. Give me all the princesses.
Now
I don't know how many more there are.
I did read a quote from the creator of the new SheRa, Princess of Power, but somebody had asked her what the rainbow meant at the end of season 1, and apparently her deadpan answer was the gay agenda, and I can only take that as a joke, because SheRa's supposed to be like the light or the beacon, right, because she radiates light and gold, so it's just like, but every other princess also has a color corresponding basically to the rainbow, so I mean, it could be a slight symbolism, but I just love the fact that her answer, or their answer, was it's just the gay agenda. Because, like, it's a rainbow. Like, not every rainbow means it has to mean something. Rainbow's just the individual parts of light.
That was a joke.
Yeah, it very much so was.
That was a cheeky joke. But I mean, the rainbows were present in the original series as well.
Yeah, I mean,
like just look at the horse. So
Swiftwind. Yeah, just rainbows everywhere. Plus, rainbows are very feminine, especially back in the 80s. If there was anything rainbow, it was about girls. And so that's another thing I kind of wanted to get into.
The actual gay representation of in the show, the only like overt, like, you know, genuine examples, because like people are upset that how dare they include you know, any kind of like allegories or allusions or any kind of implications of anything remotely gay in a quote unquote children's show. The only examples of it ever existing in SheRa like directly is that during the prom episode there are same-sex couples dancing together.
Well, not just that,
but sorry, beg your pardon, and Natasa and Spinnerella.
Yes, I was going to say you also have Natasa and Spinnerella entering together, holding hands, but even then it's not clubbing you over the face. Yeah, they only enter in once and then they work together in the end, and it's not clubbing you over the face. It's just they walk in, they're there, and it's kind of also funny because even when they first show up, people are like, we're not sure exactly why they're here, and it's funny because they haven't probably used their powers or contributed since the last Princesses Council, right? The Princesses Revolution. And so like they forgot kind of how cool these characters were. And then in the finale of season 1, you see how cool, you know, Spinnerella has wind powers. She controls the element of wind. And then Natasa throws nets of energy. Like, they're super valuable and helpful skills that people were just sleeping on because they were like, well, they're just kind of here, right? I never felt once.
My point being that the gay agenda is sort of in terms of like blatant in your face stuff is almost non-present.
Yep,
but
for sure.
There is definitely more of a allegorical presence of it. You know, the fact that you have a woman who is discovering herself. She is learning. She's like coming. It's coming of age, and she is, you know, stepping away from the familiar, the area she was raised from, and becoming her, discovering who she is inside, who she almost always has been. Yeah, not just who she is going to become, but who she has always been. And over the course, you know, she's meeting people. She's just kind of becoming more and more aware of just her I guess, in the context of the show, her destiny, but really it's just about herself.
Yeah, expressing herself without the shackles of the Horde keeping her down. Because even in the episode where Glimmer gets corrupted by the Garnet, what was it, the Black Garnet? Oh, I'm blanking now. But,
yes.
Even they say it's like a cold, and then they ask, well, Adora, what do you do when you get a cold? And she says, I hide, and I don't let anybody see me, because any sign of physical weakness is bad in the Horde, because they'll eat you alive. And so it's just, that mentality is, as soon as she has an emotion that isn't considered strength, or any sort of tiny physical ailment like a cold, it's considered not proper, and not going to contribute to your standing or strength. And so you can definitely tell that she's been repressed by having her military background, which I don't think they explored all that much in the original series, but this Adora...
Not at all.
Yeah, this Adora has a military background, and when you think about it, because we have sort of briefly touched on it, but the over-sexualization, or not really over-sexualization of the original series, it wouldn't reflect in a military child. She would be prim, proper, ponytail, jacket, long pants, belts. That's what her attire would be.
No time for that sort of...
Yeah, you have no time for frivolous dresses and going to proms, which they do, which is a great episode. We'll touch on that in a bit, though. But it's also, when you learn the background of Adora, it makes sense why she's not dressed like a Valkyrie or a Greek goddess, because that's not who she is at this moment. Who she is
that's
a military child.
The thought that went into the show, yeah. And like, even the relationship that's explored between her and Catra, sort of sticking to the gay agenda thing, like it can be interpreted different ways. Like, you can interpret this as a gay relationship of like people who are as a couple but are drifting apart, and the pain of that. You have one side who's desperate to keep things the way they were, and the other one is trying to go off and become them. They want to go off on their own path, and you see them kind of flirt with that relationship. I mean, especially in the prom episode. It's
very
one of the
very
best
heavy
episodes of any cartoon show I've ever seen ever. Oh my god! But
not to mention, just because I want to touch on that since we were just talking about the prom episode, not to mention that even in that episode, they play around with all the conventions of each character's personality. You get to see Catra chooses a suit, right? A very high-standing, authoritative, sort of male, masculine repertoire, but then her bow tie's not done up. Right, because she's not completely in that rung.
Parts of her buttons are undone as well. Like, it's still meant to be more of a rugged look as well.
Very much so. Kind of like I'm going to dress up for the authority, but you don't own me. Right, I'm a cat who doesn't have a leash, kind of thing. And you also get to see it in Scorpia, who gets the actual invitation to the prom, to the ball, and she's usually a very big, rugged, tough female character, but when she dresses up for the prom, she goes through a bunch of big frilly dresses that are funny and way overly feminine, because she is a kind and caring person on the inside. But then you see that she gets embarrassed that she actually wears a dress that flatters her more, and Catra accepts it and, says she looks good. And then it's kind of that thing of maybe Scorpia hasn't been encouraged to wear dresses that would flatter her in that way. And that's why she went to the more...
there's no mock. In it either.
There's no mockery of any of these characters or their choices on how they wish to go to the prom. And that's also very great, because it shows off that even Entrapta, she's still in her science garb. That's what she rocks every day. She goes everywhere to do science. And so it shows you how each character is really rooted in how they would express themselves through their clothes, or how they would wish to express themselves, but maybe are also sort of shy, or this is new ground for them. Because even like Scorpia says, she never goes because it's not a place for her, but they wouldn't invite her if it's not a place for her. And so it's also exploring that sort of, just because you believe you don't fit in an area, if people are kind of giving you the hints that you do belong, you kind of have to keep your eyes open for those, or else you might miss out on big chances.
There's a lot of instances of just acceptance, and at times it's difficult, but then overcoming those obstacles. they learn acceptance of who they are as as individuals. I mean, like, take something like like the whole prom scene with like Catra and Adora, and how, as I said, like one way it could be interpreted as a gay relationship that's falling apart. It could just be interpreted as just an intense friendship. It could be interpreted as sworn enemies, who are just like riling one another up. You have so many ways to interpret this scene. If you look at something like Steven Universe and like the last one out of Beach Town, I think the episode is the one where the pink-haired Pearl is like constantly trying to speak to, but can never muster the courage to actually get around to speaking.
Oh yeah, the woman that Pearl finds attractive because she kind of has that rose quartz air about her with her hair choice.
Yeah, like the fact the way it's framed is actually very clever, because like, yes, absolutely, that is meant to be an allegory for a gay relationship.
Yep.
But they kind of like they managed to make it sort of not overt, make it more conceivably vague enough, I guess, at least to get past the censors, where it's more about, she just wants to ask her about her hair. Oh, I didn't know humans could have pink hair. Well, why didn't you go talk to her about it? Oh, I don't know. And that's it. And then she gets the phone number at the end, and it's like, oh wow, you made a friend.
Yeah, I mean, and it's also like, perfect.
It's all designed to not be overt, and I think that's what all these shows kind of have to do. So all the people who are outraged that they have this overt gay agenda, it's like, it's really not. It's just more subtext.
Yeah, you're focusing on
what of it. That's
that
whatever you
big
make
bad
of it.
Of the gay agenda. But what you're not realizing is I had my friend Kat on to talk about Steven Universe, and one of the big questions I had was, obviously they're hammering, well, not really hammering in lessons, but they're focusing on lessons for trans people, gay people, and anybody of the LGBTQ plus community. But one of my questions was, what can every child who might not even be part of that community, what lessons can they pull from this? Because that's the focus, is like you were saying with Pearl and the girl. The big lesson there, it wasn't focusing on the fact that, oh my gods, they're lesbians. No, it was, oh, this person has a feeling about another person, and they're exploring those awkward feelings of, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe it'd be rude, or maybe, because every human being will go through that when they find someone else attractive. Yeah, it's a natural human reaction, regardless of your orientation, because you're worried about those weird butterflies in your tummy and all that stuff. And that's why it works so well with Pearl and the girl, because it's just about the feelings. It's not about the sexualized nature behind it or the orientation. It's just about the feelings, which everyone can connect to.
And I think it's like we were saying before about, we never watched the original show because it's a girl show, and quote girl show. Yep. And we want to stick to our boy show. I think as well, I guess it just comes with I guess emotional maturity, but it's, on the one hand, it's absolutely possible to just find a reflection of yourself in anyone or anything. The main character could be a dog. It could be a talking brick wall. It could be a space alien. The point is, depending on the qualities of the character and the circumstances they go through, you can find almost any aspect of that relatable to yourself. I'm a straight man, but I can see a story of Pearl trying to talk to someone and understand, yes, I've gone through times where I've tried to talk to somebody and it's really awkward and I'm shy and I don't know what to say and
exactly.
I fumble. You can still relate to this stuff, but at the same time, on the kind of the flip side, it also has to be representational. You can't just have the reign of the white boy lead has come and not gone, it's still here.
There's still a demographic for it.
Yeah, it's time to share. And I think we can allow for a show to be a predominantly female-led, female-written, female-directed, female-animated, female cast, of course, shows. And we can still find relatable things in this show. It's not an exclusionary thing. It's an inclusionary thing.
Yeah, and I found that all the creators and everything and the voice actresses for SheRa, the Princesses of Power, they did a wonderful job. And people are always like, oh, you know, men who like cartoons are just sexist. It's not a sexism thing. It's because sometimes certain creators aren't given a decent enough shot, or they're put on too much of a leash because they're worried about the money that they'll bring in, which that leash will now hinder the money that the companies will bring in by so much. When you give room to actually be a creative female in the industry, we get amazing things from them. I think it's more that people are just not mature enough yet to figure out that it's not the females that we're angry against. It's the corporations or the companies or publicists behind them that are sort of reining them in and sort of making them stick to a certain thing, so that way they can't grow and they can't express their viewpoints properly, which is terrible in itself. It's not down to the females or the women or the ladies who write and work on this stuff. It's down to the people kind of controlling them who we should be angry at.
Absolutely. And like, I found like amongst the criticism for the show that it garnered, like a lot of it was so directly, personally attacking the showrunner, Noelle Stevenson.
Yes.
And like even questioning her femininity because she didn't give SheRa a cleavage. And it's
which I'm thankful for, by the way.
That level of intrusion is disgusting. That is horrible. The fact that, she's a boyish lesbian, so therefore, you know, she's done this to that. And it's like, that is a disgusting way to think of a human being.
Yeah, very much so. You know, just to sort of blame everything on that, and it's a very easy, low-hanging fruit bad guy quotes to blame the things on, right? It's like, oh, there's the easy bad guy.
A person's appearance. The fact that you would attack a person's appearance for why you don't like a show, like that's unforgivable, frankly. Like, that is just petty and childish, and like, frankly, you need to find some new problems, because like, if that's your biggest problem in the world, you need to go out and find some new ones.
Yeah, it does seem that some people certainly did focus in on what they felt was important for them, but it doesn't matter. In the real world, in life, it absolutely doesn't matter. But there were a lot of people, I mean, vocal minority rules, right? Because that's who's going to be angriest on the internet, the vocal minority. And so it's just,
as I said, they're the ones that they pull in the views on YouTube, because people
the negativity.
People love that. It's the cool teenage. I'd say teenager. I think everyone goes through like that moody teenager phase where they like become rebellious and like anti-authoritarian and like, no, I don't like the cool stuff. I like my stuff. I like the trend. I don't like trendy. You know, I like the cool stuff. There's, you know, I mean, I'm 37. So, well, no, 36. I'm 37 this year. So like, my teenage phase was the new metal phase. I had, you know, I went to the Linkin Park show. You know, I saw Offspring. I saw Green Day. I had all that stuff. System of a Down, you know, my angry white boy music, much. You know.
So yeah, and that lasted for a while, because I'm 30, and so that did sort of last up until even some kids from my generation, especially from the small town I was in. People are like, oh, well, you're only 30, you're a millennial. I'm like, yeah, but you also have to add like 6-7 years, because I lived in a small town. It's like a time capsule. Time progresses at like minus 10 years when you're in some backwater town where classrooms don't even have computers yet. So
yeah. So like my point being that like we all go through, I think we all go through that kind of moody phase, and I think that's just part of like just transitioning from child to adult, where I guess we're resistant to responsibility, but at the same time we do want to be in charge of our own destiny, and that can manifest itself in, you know, various ways, but ultimately, hopefully, people then mature out of it and they gain that kind of broader perspective on things, and they understand that not everything is for them, and that's fine.
Yeah, that was a big milestone for like me when I was through that phase as well. And some people do progress at a later time clock than others, which we have to respect, because some people will be like 22, 23 by the time they learn certain life lessons. But yeah, that was definitely for me where I had to sort of sit back and go, you know, not everything's going to be for me, and that's fine. Like, I'm just but one person in a sea of billions of people, And so people are going to create art for the people that they believe will enjoy it or be able to benefit from it most. And guess what? That's not going to be me like 99.9% of the time, unless the story is made to cast the widest net possible.
Yeah. And like, I mean, there's a music festival in the UK called the Reading Festival, and it happens every year around August. And they usually have like the biggest bands of the time, and it's more of the rock and the metal leaning side of things. You know, it does mix it up with, you know, one year it had Eminem and 50 Cent. You know, yeah, it mixes it up with the genres, but in general, it's like rock. And I went there every year for like 6 years, right? And I knew every band on the lineup, you know, and I would check out as many bands as I could. It's like a weekend long thing. But now, since having stopped going for like, I think about 10, 15, nearly 15 years, I think. It's been a long time since but like, I would every now and again see the poster, the lineup for, you know, this coming in August, because it's still, and like, I look at that lineup and I can maybe recognize one or two bands. Like, there's so many bands on this weekend now that I've never heard. And I don't get angry at that, because it's like, yeah, time has moved on. I've gone off and done, you know, I've drifted one way, and music hasn't stopped for me. So you see people who respond to the announcement of the lineup with like who? What's this? I haven't heard of these people.
Yeah, I definitely know that.
Yeah, maybe it's not for you. Maybe you're not the people they are trying to appeal. Maybe they're trying to promote themselves to the people who have heard of these bands.
Yeah, because they're trying to promote what's referred to as the new hotness. And guess what? All the bands that you love, they're not the new hotness anymore. They're not going to pull in the numbers.
Exactly.
So they get in the new attractions.
So it's either a case of, hey, either broaden your taste in music, or just let people enjoy their thing.
Yeah, give a chance to something new. Like, it's not that hard.
Yeah, and that's the other aspect. Or check them out. You might like them.
Oh no, you like something new? Oh, my childhood is ruined. You've killed your childhood. Congratulations, you're now an adult.
My repertoire, it's embiggened.
It's embiggened. It's just, unfortunately, that's like one of those human things that we have. It's like a pattern, because we want to stick to what keeps us safe and what we know, because it's safe, right? But it's also unsafe.
Safe, it's comfortable.
Because it creates that bubble, and the bubble gets thicker, and it hardens, and it gets harder and harder to break through that the more you sort of hunker down inside that bubble and go, this is what I like, nothing comes close to it. Well, it's because you're not trying to look at the merits of other things outside of that bubble. There can be certain aspects of certain things that you enjoy, but maybe not to like be a fanatic about it. And that's how I usually describe how I like certain shows. I'm like, oh yeah, I enjoyed the show, but I'm not like a huge fan of it. You know, I'm not like Gravity Falls. I was into Gravity Falls with all of the conspiracies, decoding everything. I was super into it. Then there's shows like Steven Universe where I'm like, yeah, I'm into it, but I don't go and like theory craft or anything. I just enjoy it as it comes along.
Like even SheRa, like, don't get me wrong, I love the show, but I still have problems with it. You know, it's
of course, everything has issues.
Show. Yeah, of course. Like, and yeah, I'm not. I think that's the thing. Like, if you for defending, or in my case, just liking the show, it's almost like, but what about this? What about that? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no. I know the show still has its problems. I'm not calling this the most perfect show in the world. You know, I mean, I recognize that there are like animation shortcomings in this, and just through like a broad understanding of how TV shows are made, I know that like they probably had budget restraints or time restraints, or maybe just not enough people working on the show at the time. You know, it was short-staffed. I don't know. I'm not in the room with them, but you know, I could still see like, instead of like the vines in one episode being animated growing, they do like almost like transitions of like stills, and it's like, I mean, yeah, to me that's lazy animation, but like that's me just nitpicking, quite frankly. Like the show is great. I really enjoy the characters, the voice acting, the story. I enjoy that I can just overlook these petty problems and just enjoy it for what it is.
You have to sort of find those large things to enjoy about a show in order to sort of not mind maybe some of the writing, because sometimes the writing in the SheRa, it's like, let me guess, you're going to say, am I late? No, you're right on time. No, you're right on time. It's like, wow, who could have saw that line coming? It's like, yeah, you want to throw it in there because it's one of those lines that it's like, yeah, that's the line we say in those moments. But also it's so played out, maybe you could have added some character flavor in there, like expressing gratitude or appreciation, or like, I didn't think you'd come, like something like that, like other than just right on time. Yeah. And yeah, so there are faults to everything, but it becomes when do the faults outweigh the benefits? When does the bad outweigh the good? And can the good be so good that it sort of blinds you to the faults, which is where you want to be. You want to be to the point where someone can be so engrossed in what they're seeing or, playing in terms of video games that you want to let the player or the audience sort of not notice the small things the first time through.
So, let me propose a question to you. So, I assume you've seen the Toy Story movies.
I've seen most of them, yes.
Have you seen the first one?
Yes, I've seen the first one.
Okay, so in the story of the first one, we have Buzz Lightyear, who's turned up. He's a toy, but he doesn't know he's a toy. He thinks he's a real space ranger, and that plays out for most of the movie until the third act, right?
Yep.
Now, does it bother you that if Buzz Lightyear didn't know he was a toy, why would he still fall down stiff whenever Andy's in the room, right?
Yeah, it seems like a glaring hole. Like if he didn't think he was a toy, he'd be running around trying to blast the giant.
But yeah, that seems like a massive plot hole. But does that bother you? No, you still enjoy the film. That piece of illogical storytelling is so not important. Yeah. In no way does it impede the enjoyment of the. So you could pick that out as a genuine flaw of the film. Yes, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that Buzz would still behave like a toy if he doesn't think he's a toy. But that doesn't stop you enjoying the film. It's a wonderful film, and it's spawned two great films, and I don't have an opinion on the fourth one yet. I wish they didn't do it, but I guess I'll wait and see. I mean, the trailers for the fourth film came out around the same time as the Detective Pikachu trailer, which I'm way more excited for.
Detective Pikachu looks great. I'm super hyped on
so good.
The whole, I can talk to you, Pikachu, and Pikachu can understand me. Like, how are they going to play that dynamic? I hope there's more of that, because in buddy cop movies, or movies that follow that formula, what I like is when one of them is the fish out of water, but I really enjoy when the human or the regular person in the duo has to keep leashing the other person in because they just don't know yet. I like when the first act and even some of the second act is filled with no, don't touch that. Well, why not? Well, because it's not yours. You can't do that kind of thing. Because I like seeing the fish out of water do silly things because they just don't know yet.
Exactly, yeah. So I am, yeah. I'm intrigued to see how they play that out in Detective Pikachu. But just to turn the wheel back around, the flaws, as you said, I mean, I'm repeating what you're saying now, but if the flaws of the show impede the enjoyment of the show, then fine, fair enough. But otherwise, they are. It's not worth dwelling upon. It's fine. If you enjoy the show so much. If they make such a good job of the show that you can overlook these shortcomings, great.
Yeah, nitpicks are called nitpicks for a reason, because they're just nitpicks. You just kind of pick them off and then, oh, look, nothing's really changed. The thing underneath it is, it's like a fluff on your clothing, right? I think that's where that comes from. Nitpicking is pulling the little fluffs or strings off the end of clothing. Or I think it's a very old term, but that's what I always thought nitpicking referred to. And so it's you see a loose thread or a little ball of string from the dryer or whatever, just pluck it off and there you go. Your shirt's the same and you don't have that little tiny thing on you anymore. It's inconsequential. It doesn't impact anything.
Exactly. Sorry, I was going to swig of water.
Oh yeah, no, I've been taking sips of water as well. Don't worry. Got to keep hydrated. But one thing I did want to ask you, because as we've stated many times, you are a writer, was how do you feel about the exclusion...
I mentioned I'm a writer.
Oh, you're a writer. Oh, awesome. Right, but how do you feel about the exclusion of Hordak for almost the entirety of the first arc? He's usually either just a shadow, or he only comes over a comm every now and then for like a status update, but near the end of the season, that's when he sort of starts playing his power. How do you sort of feel about keeping like the big bad sort of a secret, almost?
In a manner, I'm almost disappointed we saw Hordak at all. Like, I almost preferred him as being this kind of shadowy unknown. Like, in almost any monster movie, I always prefer it that you don't... The less you see the monster, the better. Because, like, I guess your mind fills in the blanks and you always come up with worse stuff than whatever anyone can conceivably come up with.
Yeah, it's that childlike sort of reaction to seeing monsters. Yeah,
well, it's to the unknown. Like, I don't think there's anything more terrifying than the unknown. Because there's nothing you can do about it. You don't know how to prepare for it. You don't know how to control it. You don't know what it is. So
yeah, it can literally be anything that your mind thinks it could. Like, it could be something you can't even fathom.
And so, yeah, I'm almost disappointed. Yeah, we actually, I'd almost rather he stayed shadowy and almost off screen all the time. But I know obviously they did have to show him in some form. I'm fine because I think they could have started this show and bombarded us with, here's all the characters you know, here's everyone. And that would have been just too much at once. That would be like Suicide Squad, where they have to like introduce everyone twice in the first 10 minutes of the film. And it's like, that's too much. It's too much information. So it's a gradual like introduction over time. They begin with the threat being more represented with Shadow Weaver, who does have a more direct line to Adora, so that makes more sense that she's a more direct antagonist. And it's only after almost after Shadow Weaver's efforts have been exhausted does Hordak step in to be the bigger bad, the thing that even Shadow Weaver's scared of.
Once you see that Shadow Weaver in herself, even though she tries to put on the air that she's infallible and has great power, she still bends the knee to someone more powerful than her. So it's kind of like...
And is entirely dependent on him.
Yeah, exactly, because like he even said in the finale, the Black Garnet is mine. It is for me to give and take away as I please. So basically he's saying...
Exactly, yeah.
All of your power, all of your control is because I say you have it. And then once he says she doesn't have it, she crumbles. And that's when Catra makes her play to become his first lieutenant.
Exactly. So it's that kind of, that such cool play of power. We see her as being this fierce antagonist at the beginning, and then once Hordak steps in and strips that away from her, that immediately ups the ante of oh, okay, this guy is something not to mess with. We thought this person was scary. No, check out this person, Yeah.
And I think you've actually sort of swayed my mind a little bit with keeping Hordak a shadowy figure, because I think if you would have only seen a Dr. Claw hand, right, one hand, that's all you ever see of him, if he would have just reached out towards the screen at one point and did something, I think that would have been way scarier for the fact that this is just a guy who you've seen his throne, but you never see him. He's always in a shadow, and yet from the shadow, he has the ability to cripple a sorceress.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been, so it would have been a very bigger impact to have just, because even if you kept him all in shadows, as soon as you reveal his hand or his claw, whatever his monstrous hand, it still would have given you just a glimpse of what he could possibly look like under all that shadow. And that would have been almost kind of like that cool Dr. Claw reveal where it's you got your little nugget, let's see if he comes in season 2 to actually start doing stuff.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. That's why, obviously each season has to raise the stakes. So it's well, okay, in season 1, Shadow Weaver is basically defeated, and Adora has accepted her destiny as SheRa and has gathered the princesses of power. So it's okay, what could possibly be the threat? This guy. So,
the leader of the Horde.
I appreciate. Yeah, so I appreciate the more drip effect where we almost basically got, for the first half of the season, we basically got an episode dedicated to each princess, where we got to meet them, meet their world, meet the people around them and their kind of their own personality quirks, and then it'll move on to the next princess, and it's only until later do we then start seeing cross mingle. Like the prom episode is like, I think the first instance we see these princesses mingle.
Yeah, and also you also get to see when Perfuma asks Beau to the prom because for whatever that maybe romantic or friendship reason, but you actually get to see the friendship dynamic between Glimmer and Beau, because Glimmer's only ever had her one friend, and now that Beau's getting a new friend, she doesn't understand how to cope with that because it's never happened to her before.
And I think that's a great hallmark of like ensemble shows where it's like not just, I guess there's almost like a when it comes to certain shows that you have your core dynamic, you have maybe like your main three characters, and it's like, okay, I know how these characters get on, but it's like, well, say you took one of your core characters and threw him or her against this character, how would they interact with one another? And you might be stuck with like, oh, I don't know. They don't really do anything without the other two characters. So I like the way that these shows like cross their characters, where you have one character splinter off from the other two to go and have their own kind of little mini adventure with somebody else, or you see this princess talk to that princess. Like I recently watched The Umbrella Academy, and
that's on my list.
I'm sorry?
I said, that's on my list. I haven't watched that yet, but I've been hearing good things.
I recommend it. But they are constantly crossing up their characters all the time. You might have two characters who are paired up to go do a thing. But then later on, those two will sort of split apart for whatever reason, and then this character will now mingle with this character instead. So through the series, you then see how each character interacts with the other. Which ones don't get along, which ones get along great, which ones have a more unique dynamic. And the same is, a good show does that, and SheRa does do that too.
Yeah.
Where you just get to see how well these characters have been like fleshed out and written by seeing them interact with one another and other people.
Yeah, because you need characters to interact with different characters so you can see how their character growth happens later on in the seasons if they've interacted before, or just how the dynamic would work. Like, oh, maybe these two probably shouldn't be alone together too often because their personalities clash so much. And so it actually deepens the character in a very easy and simple way just by going, well, this character likes to hug, this character hates being hugged. How do we do this whole thing? Like they did that with Scorpia and Catra. The first scene you meet Scorpia, you see her as this big imposing figure, and then she's like, oh, come here. By the way, did I mention I'm a hugger? And then it's like, oh, she's this huge buff scorpion princess, but she's also a sweetheart.
Total softie, yeah.
Yeah.
And so like you said about like Beau going on the date with Perfuma, like that's an example of what would Glimmer do without Beau. And like we see her legitimately struggle. And like that's a great character moment.
Yeah, for sure. It shows that she's been for herself independent through most everything she does, but only because she's had Beau with her through those times. Every time she goes places, it's with Beau. And so it's almost as if it's that revealing moment of that's her crutch. She's heavily trying to be independent, but she still needs someone there with her. And so maybe that'll be explored later on. Well, she'll be able to have adventures without Beau, and maybe her and Adora go somewhere, or she just goes somewhere on her own and makes a new friend along the way.
Will she be affected by her brief imprisonment? Spoiler alert.
I think it's a little past spoiler alerts by this time. I mean, I usually treat spoiler alerts.
Affected by that, that could being a brief, albeit brief, prisoner of war where she was tortured, but like also like entirely on her own, and she did have to like will her way out of that situation. So I think that'd be fascinating to explore. Yeah, this character who wants to be independent but is still very, very much dependent. What will she do? Will she learn to will she learn to get that kind of independence but allow people like Beau to live his life, away from her,
Yeah, and there's also the looming presence of since Adora, very military, very groomed to be Force Captain and probably even Second Lieutenant at some day underneath Shadow Weaver from Shadow Weaver herself, there might become a point where she'll have to learn that she cannot protect everyone. She's not a Force Captain. She can't always be on the line with her squad and be there to protect everybody, because she's very much so a protectorate class type character. She wants to be able to make sure that everyone is safe, and that's kind of a big primal drive for her character to join the rebellion and become SheRa, because she wants to save everyone. But there's going to be that moment in season 2 where something bad's going to happen to somebody and she's going to crumble.
And I'm sure we're going to have to see examples of her, like, having to let someone else, like, look after themselves. You know, like, she might want to be the protector, but she has to let the others fight and take care of themselves. She can't protect everyone. You know, spread yourself too thin, you will crumble.
Yeah, so and even Catra,
to see where
even Catra sort of gives her that hint when they were in the weird room that scanned them and was sort of replaying memories, right? She even told her, like, you were always trying to, you know, be better than me or whatever, but it's like, no, I was just trying to protect you. I didn't want to be protected. And that was the big clue of maybe she's going to push herself too hard and try to protect everyone when she can't.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm very much looking forward. There's so many dynamics that have been established in the first season. I'm looking forward to seeing how they play out. It's almost like a soap drama, you know?
Yeah, a bit, especially if they've got, like they said, 4 arcs planned out. If they have all this time to plan them out before it goes into production, that's just all the better. That's because then it's time that they already have, you know, skipped ahead, and it's basically more proofreading, more fleshing out of the things that can happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I do have a few other questions here, that just the basic questions that I always like asking, like simple things like, you know, who's your favorite princess out of all of them?
Entrapta. Easy Entrapta.
Entrapta. Yeah, okay, so yeah, Entrapta is mine as well, and I'm pretty sure we will both know why we enjoy her so much then.
She's so sweet and endearing, so scatterbrained. There's also like a heavy illusion that she is probably autistic or has Asperger's or something like that, but it's represented in a good way. That she isn't. I mean, it's not a point of mockery. It does make for some comedy beats where she is obviously not on the same page as everyone else, but it's not made in an effort to ridicule her. You know, they don't tease or torment her for it. They might get frustrated with her, which is, you know, a natural reaction. But they don't belittle her for it. And it's almost the only reason Entrapta even switches sides is because Catra, like, convinces her and bribes her. So
she's very much the neutral scientist, right? She wants to work on science to progress in her craft. It's not about good or evil for Entrapta. It's about, I have a drive. My drive is science. I'm going to do all of the science that I can. And if the Horde provides her... Yeah, when the Horde provides her with more of a huge leap in advanced technology, she's going to take that. And I never actually thought of her as maybe possibly being, you know, on some sort of spectrum, whether it be autistic or like ADHD. But now that you've mentioned it, it is very possible, especially with her like laser focused, you know, social situations she doesn't enjoy, but she would much rather stick to what she is sort of devoted to, which is science.
So heavily distracted. Yeah, she's so like transfixed on like one thing that she fails to notice something else. Like it's yeah. I mean, I'm fine with them never explaining that. I'm fine with her.
Yeah.
They just treat her. They continue to treat her the way she does. But like, I feel like that is meant to, and in a manner, that's another element of representation. It's like, hey, look, here's some representation of somebody potentially being on the spectrum. But she is still not played to be a villainous character. She's not played to be in any way like a hinderment or a disability to anyone. You know, she is still she holds her own.
She is very much an asset to whomever she's working with. Like, whoever's side she's on, she is an immense asset. And it's funny, because you mentioned that she's some sort of scatterbrained and she doesn't always see everything. But in the prom episode, which, why is this episode like the best episode out of the entire show? Probably because it has so many of these small moments. But even when Adora's telling her not to talk with Catra, and she's like, oh, well, if that's the case, we better stop her because she just walked away. And nobody notices, it's off screen, and she's the only one who notices. Yet she's certainly so scatterbrained, but her mind seems to also be like laser focused in certain areas. It's a very weird dynamic for that character.
And I'm very, very interested to see what the reaction is going to be when the princesses learn she is alive. Because the series ends with her being presumed dead. Yes. I can't wait to see what happens. What's Entrapta's reaction going to be? Is she just going to be like, oh, hey, guys.
Yeah, she's probably going to have that. And she's also a very expressive character. The reason why I love her is because she lets her emotions shine through. She doesn't hide things. When she gets excited, she's like, oh my God, that's so good. Can I touch it? Like, she gets super excited and she wants to explore these things. Everything. Yeah, and that's why I like her a lot, because when she's serious, her mask is down, masking her emotions, probably because she's so focused. But when her mask is up, she's very expressive. She's got a bright, enlightening face. Her hair, also, the way it moves and the way it interacts with objects around it, too, it's a perfect extension of her body, and it also has a slight personality as well. Like, in one scene, her hair sort of creeps up around the corner while her hands are in the shackles, and then, like, Catra swats it away. And it's just like... Yeah. There's so much personality packed into that one princess. And that's kind of why I like her. I like her because her hair is like her special power, but she's also got a great mind. And then she's just this vibrant... It also helps that purple's my favorite color. But, you know, she's also this very vibrant personality with a very expressive face. And that's what I like in characters. I like when their faces are expressive and they show that, you know, the range of emotion. Because we certainly do see...
She's genuinely funny. She's one of the funniest characters as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we genuinely see every character have their range of expression. Like, every character is very expressive with their body, with their faces. It might not be like over the top cartoon expressive, but it's still there in kind of like that realistic manner. And that's why all these characters are so endearing. And even the most closed off of all the princesses, Mermista, who's that very like whatever, I don't care personality, even her body will lie about how she's feeling when she stands or interacts with people. Even though her face says I don't care, her body will shift and open more to people. And it's a wonderful way they added in all those little touches to these characters to sort of give them personality through not only just their words and their voices, but how they're portrayed on screen as well.
And I think that's another one of those like important distinctions between the original show and this. The personalities of the original shows were sort of way more simpler, way more two-dimensional, and that's understandable. I think that was meant to skew younger. I believe this series is skewing a bit more older than the original show did.
Yeah, definitely young teens. This show feels like young teens as well, especially with all the action and the battles and like the destruction that happens, for sure.
Yeah, so I think the original show was definitely more targeted to much younger children, and you know, for the ones that would buy the toys, of course. I mean, don't get me wrong. If they actually released those SheRa, Princess of Power toy range, you know, the new series stuff, I'm absolutely buying all the figures. I want them.
Yeah, as long as they look good. I mean, I'd be very happy to see merchandise of that, because I mean, when we were children, having toys of your favorite cartoon show was something that wasn't even a second thought. It was going to happen. It already probably happened before the show was even out. So having toys to commemorate your favorite shows, which you mentioned that they're kind of creepy to you, but the Funko Pops kind of have filled that role in recent years. And that's sort of weird, because they're very simple and they're just like nice display pieces for some people. They keep them in the box, but they're also really the only figures and the only merchandise of that sort for a lot of TV shows right now.
Well, I think it's a nice, simple, almost again like the cookie cutter thing of like they have the model, so it's not like they trouble themselves with a remodel; they just repaint them. But yes, no, I do generally hope for a new series of toys. But my point being that the original show, the characters of the princesses were just much simpler, much more two-dimensional. They weren't given any kind of... They weren't given too much depth, too much complexity, too many, like, you know, very complicated emotions or anything like that. And, like, to some people, that's an appeal. Like, to many people don't like... I know some people who don't like shows that are more about heavy on story and lore and emotions and growth, you know, they prefer the ones that are more like, let's just go back to the status quo at the end. You know, like take an episode of like I don't know, Rocko's Modern Life or something like that. You know, the show will happen, the events will happen, then everything will return back to normal at the end, and nothing will change. And people,
I love Rocko's Modern Life.
And I love Rocko's Modern Life, and I have no problem with those types of shows. It's just, I think the environment of entertainment we are now in, the fact pretty much everyone is watching shows through some kind of streamable service. We don't like sit down and watch. We don't necessarily tune into TV shows when they're broadcast. We would watch it in our own time through like either a catch-up service or just like Netflix, where the whole season is there to watch in however way you want. You can watch them in one sitting. You can watch them one a day when you sit down with your dinner. You know, that's up to you. But the people watch media now differently, and it lends itself to it being more story-driven, more heavy on the arcs. And I can understand that, like, sometimes it can be a lot, you know, when it's like, oh, you know, I have all these magical superpowers, but I need to find my father. You know, I can understand sometimes it's like, just do the superpower thing. I can understand.
Yeah, have one arc at a time, please.
But I think it's just the natural way that shows are being made now. And I think it's going to be a very interesting time, because there's like a lot more streaming services on the way. Like everyone else is now hedging their on streaming services.
Oh yeah, even Disney's getting in on that. Where exactly. I heard a rumor,
Disney is going to be a massive player.
I heard that the rumor was that they're going to have their entire vault available digitally, or at least as much as they can starting out, and they're going to plan to expand it. But if that's the case, that's going to be massive.
Yeah, that's going to be, I think, the first real challenge that Netflix will see. And I'm interested in that, because I mean, to me, that's like, ooh, more new things. I like the fact that people are up in their game. Like,
yeah, I mean, you need to have competition in any sort of environment in order for growth to happen. Otherwise, like, it just stagnates and you get the same thing over and over.
That's part of the reason why, like, I am so upset at the state of the DC movies. I haven't seen Aquaman, which is meant to be pretty. But you know, I saw Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Wonder Woman, which I loved.
I enjoyed Wonder Woman. Yep.
And Justice. I haven't actually seen Justice. I guess I could say I've seen enough of Justice League, and I know that's wrong. I know it's not right to cast an opinion on a film without having seen the whole thing. But I guess I can say I've seen enough. I'm so disappointed. Oh, and Suicide Squad, of course. I'm so disappointed at the way
Academy Award-winning Suicide Squad.
I'm so disappointed. I'm so disappointed in the way that DC have handled these films so badly. Because I'm worried sometimes that Marvel can get complacent. It's now getting to the stage where Marvel, just sticking a Marvel label on it's a safe bet, because they've now reached this kind of like Pixar level of like status where people are like, oh, it's the next blank film, it's the next Marvel film, it's the next Pixar film.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to be excited for this regardless, because of the reputation that they've garnered. So like, for example, like Ant-Man, I felt underwhelmed by. Doctor Strange was fine, but it still wasn't. I mean, it had its moments. Ant-Man and the Wasp, again, fine. 6 out of 10. Like, really, really not fantastic films. And I'm worried that if Marvel aren't challenged, and I don't just mean on a financial box office front, because I guess for the moment they're kind of safe. But if they don't have a real challenger to spook them into upping their game or continually raising that, they will fall into complacency and not doing the kind of more inspiring or awe-inspiring things that they could do.
That they have done previously. because Marvel, they even had like an in Marvel Universe renaissance when they had like the big hits of like Iron Man and Thor, but then you got into like Thor 2 in that area where Thor 2 came out and like Iron Man 3. There was those times where those movies were starting to really dip and people were like, oh no, is Marvel going to go down? And then they shot straight back up, you know, and they came back with like Guardians of the Galaxy, which were like great movies. I love the Guardians movies. They're so funny and like well paced and just great. But
the first Guardians was a transformational film for Marvel, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure. It was a huge beacon for me, and I think I went to see it twice in theaters, and it's the only movie I've seen twice in theaters in probably 2 decades. You know, since like maybe the Pokemon movie when I was a very young kid. But you know, it's that thing of like you were saying, you slap a Marvel sticker on it and it gets super popular. I'm in the mid of superhero burnout right now. I just actually made a tweet about it earlier because somebody was talking about Captain Marvel, and it's like I just don't want to see another superhero movie. I would rather just ride out and finish off the stories that I have. I don't need to see how it ties into the MCU because I don't care about it all that much. Yeah, I just sort of want to finish up the stories that I've started.
We have 3 MCU films coming out this year. We've got Captain Marvel that's just come out. We've got Avengers Endgame that's come out in May, and then we've got Spider-Man in like June or July or something like that. And it's I agree. Yeah. It's like, come on guys, space them out a little bit more. It's like when you were trying to make Star Wars an annual thing.
Right? It's the new hotness. Well, it's not the new hotness, but it's still the hotness, and you have to strike while the iron's hot. But the problem is they're aiming for the mountain when you're never going to be able to take the mountain. You never take the mountain one step at a time. You never take the mountain at a whole. You take it one step at a time. But the problem is they don't have the overarching time for that kind of thing.
It's like what I was saying about like how Marvel need to like up the ante all the time, but currently that's translating as make more, and it's like no. You don't have so many movies in a year. You can still make one, you know, absolute knockout the park film, maybe 2 a year. But it's the point is make constantly up your standards, up your game, because if you keep falling without, and that's why I was saying about DC, they are not providing that scary competition for Marvel. They are. I mean, yes. I know Suicide Squad did pull in the numbers, the box office numbers, and I know. I know that Wonder Woman has done really well, but it's still not the same. It's still not anywhere close to scaring Marvel, and I want DC to scare Marvel because I think the more
I do too. I want
the better as an audience. We win either way because it's not just like. Oh, we get good Marvel films. It's like, we get good Marvel and DC films. We get more good films. I like good film. And it's the same with TV shows and streaming services. So I like that Netflix are going to get spooked by Disney because it means we get better shows on Netflix.
For sure. It's almost as if we've sort of...
I've had with Netflix shows is the fact that like often series have to be just in contract, have to be like 13 episodes long. And it's like... that results in so many shows dragging because they have to fill it out with filler. Because stories don't merit 13 episodes. They'll be better off at 8 or 6 or something like that.
Yeah, Stranger Things Season 2, we were all agreeing, me and my friend group, Stranger Things Season 2 probably didn't need 13. You could have cut it down to 10, and without some of the fluff episodes, it would have been a much tighter, more enthralling story.
Like, Iron Fist was a goddamn chore to watch. It was such... We wanted to be... because we're looking forward to the Defenders, which was disappointing, unfortunately, but like we wanted to be completionist about it. So we're like, okay, we're gonna finish watching Iron Fist. Okay, here we go. And, it was like forcing ourselves to watch because it was so slow and not good.
But yeah, and I never had to force myself through watching SheRa twice. It was just so smooth.
Right? If you can develop a show that is just like well paced, well balanced, and with fun characters that you enjoy being around. I didn't like Iron Fist. I don't like Danny Rand, but like
I skipped on Iron Fist because nobody I knew who I trust with their evaluation for recommendations on shows for me, they just said you can pass, don't. And I'm like, okay.
Iron Fist
like I didn't have an interest in it anyway.
Yeah, Iron Fist works better when he's like with someone else because he is such a goddamn drag that it's better that there's someone else to bounce off with. But just watching a show of just him, oh god, no, pass. I haven't watched season 2. I don't want to. And it turns out I don't have to, since the whole thing's bloody cancelled. So,
yeah, sometimes miracles happen in mysterious ways. But yeah, I just had one last question, which I'm pretty sure I know the answer to, based on all the love we've been giving it. But the favorite episode of SheRa's 13, probably Princess Prom.
It's Princess Prom. It's yeah. It's like, the drama of it alone, like, yes, oh my god. But it's like, even of course, there's the moment of Adora and Catra dancing, and that kind of that twist that she does, and like has her like bent down in that dance. That moment just got an audible from
yeah. And it's not just the fact that it was animated well, but we were talking about it earlier, and I didn't say the point that I wanted to, but dancing is also another analog for a power struggle, right? It's their relationship going through, this weird dance where one of them wants to be in control, but the other wants to break away, and that's what that dance is. SheRa's trying to get away, Catra grabs her arm, pulls her in with the spin, and being like, dips her down and goes, no, I'm the one who's number one now. I'm in control. This dance is mine, not yours. And so that's that cool subtext where it's like, oh, it can be an allegory for their gay relationship or their sibling relationship, sister-sister kind of thing.
Absolutely, yes, of course.
It can be for that power struggle. And I just love how there's so many different dynamics going into that, and all the characters mingling, introduction of a new character where you get to see her status and how she views the world. And it's just... And you get to see characters in different costumes, which I always love. I always love when cartoon characters get different clothes for episodes. And it's just... There's so much in that episode that we've already talked about too. That's
as well, stuff like the color change, because like so like they're dancing, it's in that kind of pink purple light, and even like their outlines are like met with like a pinkish purpley hue, but then when she twists around, the light turns red and the outlines turn black, and that becomes like a super sinister moment, and it's just that's a wonderful art direction, right?
It illustrates that power struggle perfectly, right? You've got the purple, right? Royalty, freedom, nobility, that kind of thing. And then it switches to the black and red, which is the combination of pretty much power, evil, force, that sort of control. And so, yeah, it's just
and also
so
like
well done,
Adora being like on the down, she's like below Catra, so it's like Catra.
Yeah, literally placing herself above her. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
I mean,
great.
It was also perfectly timed in the 13 episodes as well. It was like episode 8 or 9.
Like the midway point, I think.
Yeah. I think it was episode 8 or 9, or at least 7. It was just after the midpoint.
Episode 8. I've got it in front of me. It's episode 8.
I was right when I was looking at the episode list earlier. Haha. So it's right after that midpoint where you're like, okay, where can this go? And they show you exactly where they're going to go. They're not going to hide it. It's great foreshadowing. It's great character building. It's great storytelling. And even through all of it, even through everything Catra did, Adora's still at the top of the building going, just, reach out to my hand. I will save you. And Catra's like, no, that's not what I want. Let's go. And gets her ride. She literally had it all planned out. She didn't need Adora, and that's one of those extra power moves that even Catra played, was just when she thought that when Adora was literally above Catra was like, sorry, that's not it. You're not above me. Not even when you are literally above me, you still can't be ahead of me.
Yeah, even in that moment, like, Adora still thought she had somewhat of the upper hand and wouldn't let Catra beat her, but she completely failed to notice that Catra had been winning this entire time, and this was nothing but a dance.
Yeah, exactly. And just like when they were actually dancing, Catra, amazingly enough, I just realized it, in the suit, which is usually the male-dominated part of the dance, right? Masculine. She's the one in control of everything. She's the lead. And this whole thing is just the dance that she's orchestrated.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's a subject I want to explore more, where, like, I feel like most ensemble shows always seem to have a party episode in the middle. And it's just an opportunity to group all those characters together in a new, to force them all to be in a room. It's something I want to look into, because, like, that often pays off to be some of the best moments when you just get everyone together and see how they bounce.
Yeah, or one of like the worst moments where it's just like, why was this even happening? It felt shoehorned or forced just to have these characters in this episode. But it can, like you said, it can pay off in great moments where you have genuine interactions between characters who might not see each other often. And that was the perfect thing with Perfuma asking Bo to the prom. You didn't even see that on screen. It wasn't ever mentioned. It was just like, oh yeah, Perfuma asked me. And it's like, what? It's like, and then when did it happen? They were fighting a battle. And it's like, hey, do you want to go to the ball with me? Yeah, sure. Like, of all places to ask someone on a date, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah. It's a great episode. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. There's other phenomenal episodes, like the memories episode. That's also a fantastic episode to get some of the
very powerful.
Some of the incredibly powerful, but like some of the important context. It was more of a Catra story than an Adora story because we got to
it was a turning point
so
in
much
her
more
arc.
of her own motivation. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh no! I was sort of throwing in that was a turning point in Catra's arc, not Adora's. Adora was still trying to play savior, and yet Catra learned, like, yeah, that's that point where she was like, I don't have to be number 2. This whole time I've been being trained to be also number 1, and I just really haven't realized it yet. So now's the time I should start making my power moves, and I don't need Adora anymore. And that's why she lets her fall.
It's the moment where they realize they are now 2 individuals.
And once again, that super awesome camera angle of Adora being the largest part on screen at the bottom and Catra being tiny at the top, right?
Yep.
Because she's very scrawny and scrappy, like you mentioned in your video, to sort of emphasize that underdog or undercat, to steal your joke, undercat aspect. And and it's just the fact that she's up high in a lot of the scenes where it's very pivotal for her character turn. I'm actually starting to believe that that's all intentional. Like it's almost so patterned that it can't be an accident.
Yeah, no, I believe so. Like it's. I mean, Noelle Stevenson has roots in comic books. Like I first, way before I knew there was even a SheRa reboot coming. I had read Nimona, which is a book of theirs, and I was then given, for my birthday, I was given a copy of Lumberjanes, which is another one.
I've seen Lumberjanes out and about, and I always thought it looked sort of interesting, but I never picked it up. But a friend of mine did read it.
And so, so Noelle has like roots in comic books, which is obviously an extremely visual medium, and
snapshots even. So you have to make sure that every panel is important.
And so, like, I would have imagined that was like instrumental in visual storytelling that has like played out through SheRa.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense now that that's a tidbit I didn't know, and I hope maybe some of the listeners also didn't know that tidbit, because that's actually a great little point to just in favor of the fact that, maybe that's why some of these scenes are so well shot and so well done, is because there's that fundamentalist nature of, you got comic books, you have literally one panel to express everything you need to. Make it count.
Absolutely.
And I never felt like the 13 episodes of SheRa ever faltered, really. Like, the pacing was always good. Every episode was made to count, almost as if it was a page in a comic book.
Yeah, there was something had advanced with each episode, whether that be introduce a new character or a character has overcome a burden that has been like keeping them back.
And or now there is a burden that they now have to combat.
And it culminates in that awesome sequence where they all get to join forces at the end. That, just made for a very, very good first season.
Yeah, and I'm super excited for season 2. And if they do have 4 arcs of 13 seasons plotted out, even if they're not written or anything, I'm excited for all 4. And I really do hope that people give the show a shot, because, like we've said, there have been people out there who've been throwing the, whatever labels, SJW propaganda out there. And to be fair, if you watch the show and you actually watch it as a show, it's not propaganda. It's not hammering your head with anything.
Really not.
Like, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's just a wonderful show that I believe, like, if I was to have a young daughter around this time, I would want her to watch that show. I would want her to see an example of good writing, good storytelling, good characters, even if some of them are, I mean, like Mermista's pretty one note with the, whatever kind of tone, but not every character can be a banger, right? Not every character can be in like an Entrapta. You can't have a show of entire Entraptas. That'd just be terrible. It would be too fast, too overbearing.
I mean, I'm gonna like. I mean, my son is too young. I mean, he has sort of watched the shows with me, but like in that kind of, well, he will watch whatever I put on TV kind of way. Like he watched Umbrella Academy with me, and I'm sure that's not appropriate for a child his age.
Probably not. I did see he played Smash Bros though. He was pretty good at Smash Bros.
He did. But my point being that like I would show my son this show as well. I think that's also important for boys to see strong female characters, both good and evil.
I guess I did say I would show my daughter, but I guess I would show any of my children this show because it's just a good, well show. But I think I would put more emphasis on
talking about
making
how, like,
sure.
We were just talking about how like we didn't watch the original show growing up because it was a show for girls in speech marks.
That's true. Yeah.
I don't want my son to have that same exclusionary train of thought. Like I would like him to be way more open and accepting of new thoughts and ideas. And like I would encourage him to watch SheRa because it's a show about women, powerful women, and women being able to overcome great obstacles and accomplish great things. And I think that's important to recognize that this isn't a boys' club thing. This is
I mean, Bo's there
for women too.
Right, Bo contributes. He's always a friend. He's always doing good. He's inventing new things. He contributes, right? But he's not the focus. And that's so, we're still included. Little, boys can still have a good figure in Bo. He's a very loyal friend, always there for them,
anti-men.
Doing his best. Yeah, it's definitely not anti-men. I mean, they did give it the Disney treatment where they kind of axed off a parent, but, But even that sort of comes to fruition in the final episode where there's that big, it's a very small moment, but it's very big for Glimmer where she's granted her father's staff, which is like, so far in the series, we saw that you don't touch her dad's things. It's off limits. We don't talk about it. No. Like, it's too tragic for my mother. And yet here it is, a moment between mother and daughter where there's granted the, I don't want to say inheritance, but almost like the heir or the lineage of her father's power or status is now granted down to Glimmer.
I think like Glimmer's arc throughout has been like she is always wanted to sort of step up, but she's always been held back by her mother, who is like obviously since the loss of her father, very cautious and very overprotective, and obviously doubly being a queen, like she's very like overbearing and overruling. That kind of moment where she passes the baton, like that's like almost her mother's arc of like, I'm going to let my daughter actually do these things. I've been stopping her from doing these, or being reluctant and resistant to let her go out and try and do these ambitious events. And like,
yeah, very much so.
I'm now accepting of who she is, and I want her to go out and take her father's staff and do great things with it.
Yeah, because that's sort of the queen's recognition of the princess. The princess society is back. Like, this is when we need her more than ever. This is when she's going to be able to do her best. I can't hold her back any longer because look at the great she's already done. She's defended Bright Moon. She's went out and gathered other princesses, been a diplomat, been a warrior. She's grown up, and she has to, as a mother, let her little birdie fly, right? Because you can't keep them in the nest forever.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's one of the hardest things that, even parents will say they have to do is learning to be able to let your child be an independent, because, your whole duty for however many years it is to protect them, is to keep them alive, is to keep them safe. And that programming over, a decade or two, depending on how long it takes, it sort of gets seeded into who you are, right? It's that parental, maternal, patriarchal sort of, or no, paternal, not patriarchal. Geez, wrong word. Misspoke in a terrible way there. But yeah, the maternal or paternal need to sort of keep your kids safe and want them to just have good things, but you realize you can't do it forever.
Exactly. Yeah. You'll always be conflicted with, like, you want to be protective, but at the same time, you want them to live their life. You want them to make their mistakes. You want them to scrape their knee, you know, because it's all part of the growing and learning process. You know, you want to just make sure you are there for them, but let them do their thing.
Yeah, right. It's that whole thing of, like, you know, you want to help them grow up, but when time comes, if they want to watch SheRa, let them watch SheRa. Don't tell them it's for boys or it's for girls or whatever it may be. Let them experience the world in which they want to experience it, because that's when the rebellious phase is just going to kick in twice as hard and twice as quick, is if you try and cage somebody up.
And I can't think of any reason. I can't think of any reason that, not, you know, watching a TV show, you can't come away with being enriched in some way. Even if you hated the show, if you come away with, like, reasons why you hate the show, and you're able to articulate that can help you out in your craft. Or even if you're not, you know, if you're not creatively leaning, you know, you just like watching, you know, even if you watched a bad show, there's probably still an experience you've gathered from that. Even if it's just like you get to share a laugh with friends over, like, haha, wasn't that bit stupid, you know, or whatever, you know. It's still, I can't think
just of how bad it is.
People coming away with having watched a TV show and worse off, you know.
Yeah, I mean, like, take Tommy Wiseau's The Room. Everybody says it's not a great movie, but for some reason it's a great movie. It's like that catastrophic thing of, it doesn't have to be good to be enjoyable. And that's that weird human dynamic as well. And we sort of touched on it at the beginning of the podcast, where it's kind of like, you know, watching something in order to gain a new perspective or to understand why you dislike it is better than anything. I watched the Ghostbusters 2016 reboot movie, going into it knowing, like, I'm hearing all the bad stuff about it. And I'm like, you know what? I love Ghostbusters. I want to see how this does. I didn't enjoy it all that much, but I got two chuckles. And I will give that movie the benefit of the doubt of saying it made me chuckle twice. And it was by, I forget the actress's name and the character's name, because the movie just did not stick at all. But the black lady, right, the African-American woman who played that character, Leslie Jones, thank you. I knew her name was Leslie, I just couldn't remember. I'm terrible with names of celebrities as well, so that doesn't help. Leslie Jones, right, she had, when she was being, because she was basically just the female Winston Zeddemore, the every person, right? When she was down in the train and she was walking like, I don't get paid enough for this shit, right? Like, that was funny because I knew it was going to happen, and I knew that this was going to be the turning point for her character. And then, you know, later on near the end of the movie, she also got another point because she was just that funny every person who's like, I don't do science, I don't do anything, I just kind of need a job, and this, you know, this crap is crazy. And that's why that character was enjoyable.
Ghostbusters 2016, I think is that was 2016. That came out the same year as Suicide Squad, and I rank them both as being, I think, the worst films I'd seen that year. And I had seen Independence Day 2. Independence Day 2 is arguably a awful, but I went in with the expectations of it being an awful film, and they were met. So I wasn't disappointed. I had an arguably okay time with it, because it was just stupid trash, and it's like, yeah, this is stupid and VFXy and dumb, but, like, you know, I didn't expect more out of it. Whereas Ghostbusters, and off the back of the sheer antagonism, I wanted more out of it, and it failed so spectacularly. Like you, I got maybe 2 laughs out of it. It was so disappointing, and I so wanted it to be better, and I think that's the thing. I wanted it to be so, and it wasn't. I mean, yes, talking about Leslie Jones's character, equally, I don't remember any of the characters' names. Like, she's introduced.
I just call them the original Ghostbusters names, Lady Venkman, Lady, because, like, they didn't make them endearing. They weren't, like, likable characters. To me, no. Anyway, to me, I mean, I've seen tons of posts saying,
I've
seen tons of posts being like, you know, I love these characters, like, they resonate with me and my daughter, or me and my son, or whatever it may be. And I'm not going to say that, oh, you can't like it. Like, awesome. I'm glad you found a film you enjoy. That's what they're there for. But for me, it just didn't resonate. And that's probably why it was just sort of meh.
There's one moment with Leslie Jones's character that, like, I mean, I'd already by that point in the film I'd already bad film, but there's one point that kind of damned it even more for me, and it's going back to that whole, like, if it's a plot hole thing, does it actually affect your enjoyment thing? This is one of those moments that it bugged me, because it's like when Leslie Jones's character is introduced, she's introduced to be like, hey, I know this city like the back of my hand. You know, you need to know about how to get somewhere or know about where something is. I'm the person. I can tell you. I can help you out there. It's like, okay, so this person we've established knows New York like the back of her hand. And then there's the moment in the film where they're looking at the map and they're looking at where all these activities have occurred. And they're working, but it's making, like, I think it's like a pentangle or something like that. It's making a symbol, and the lines are joining in the middle. And there's a cross point. There's a building where all the lines cross. And I'm thinking, okay, Leslie Jones, now's your time. You know this city like the back of your hand. You're going to know what that building is.
Yeah, exactly, right? You're going to know this is your skill.
She doesn't go, oh, it's this building. Somebody else does. One of the other characters go, oh, that's the old theatre. It's like, what? No, that's Leslie Jones' job. That's her job. She's meant to be the one who knows the city like the back of her hand. She's meant to be able to point at that and say, that's the theatre. That's your job. That's your job in the film. to the unspoken navigator. But yeah, it's like, oh, for God's sake, film, how do you mess that one up? How do you mess up that simple setup and payoff?
They even gave her the point of getting a car, like getting the vehicle. And it's just like, so she's meant to be the person who knows the city, who gets the ride, and when it comes down to being like, oh yeah, I know where that is, that's that theater over on blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. You know, my cousin worked there, or, you know, I used to have a job there. Something simple and easy that would, like, even dip a little bit more into her character. Nothing.
No, nothing. A gross disappointment.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be one that I go rewatch. I'm still glad that I have the Ghostbusters 1 and 2 special editions on DVD that are in my collection, and I will go rewatch those as many times until the discs melt.
Even Ghostbusters 2 isn't very good. I like Ghostbusters 1.
I still enjoy it. I'm not going to defend it, but I still enjoy it.
You're not going to write a video essay on it. But Ghostbusters 1 is a classic, of course. It has one scene I don't like. I think it's dumb. It's the ghost blow job. No.
Yeah, that was weird. And well, if they would have used it, I was actually exactly talking about that scene with a friend the other day because we were watching something about a Ghostbusters thing, and I said, if that actually happened to, oh man, I'm blanking on his name, Dan Aykroyd, right? If that actually happened to Dan Aykroyd's character, who is supposed to be all of this, you know, who's super into the occult and everything, would that not be the thing he does not shut up about for the rest of the movie? That would be his ultimate evidence, being like, remember that time that ghost blew me? Like, that would be the thing he would never shut up about, and it's never brought up again.
It's treated as a dream sequence, and the reason behind that was that it was a scene that was cut. There was a whole sequence where he found a costume, like he's wearing a like a garb, like a uniform, like a soldier's uniform, and I think the idea was that it was like worn by the ghost's husband, and because he put it on like a costume and then fell asleep in the bed, she arrived to give him a blowjob, and that whole scene was cut, but Dan Aykroyd insisted that they still worked in that scene because he just said, oh no, it's a common thing with ghosts that people have sexual encounters with ghosts.
It's a common thing with ghosts? Yeah, but then if you don't have the
is it Dan Aykroyd? Is it?
Yeah, right. I mean, is it really? But if you had that, if you don't have the prefix of it, of, you know, wearing the suit and whatever, then it seems real, right? It seems like an event that happens, and therefore your character shouldn't shut up about it. Right? You have to, like, edit the script now to be like, I got blown by a ghost. It happens all the time, and I can't believe it happened to me. Like, if it happens all the time, Dan Aykroyd, why wasn't it in the script being like, you know, man, it happened like 4 times last week? Like,
like, no, Dan Aykroyd, you just go back to your skull vodka. Like, let the people tell the movie. Like,
yeah, I mean, there's definitely some weird things that happen with shows, but just to get back onto the last bit of SheRa before we wrap up here, because we've been almost rattling on for 2 hours, which is just a testament to the show, I guess, and a lot of, positive vocal things we have to say, but I usually never like ending on a negative note, but I think I might this time. And I just want to ask, what was the thing that maybe bothered you the most about the new SheRa?
Let's see. I think I did briefly touch upon some of the animation problems I had with it, instead of animating the vines in one scene, they just had like the vines kind of exist and then crossfade to the next stage and then crossfade to the next stage, and it's like that. I felt was like that kind of took me out of the show a little bit. When you're like getting so like deep and engrossed into something, and you see something like that, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm now pulled out of the show a little bit. Like honestly, I'm struggling to think of any like true criticisms, true like stuff that really bothered me. Like even like that animation glitch, like as I said, that's a petty complaint. It's a nitpick. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not something that's nothing that I can seriously say really bothered me. Yeah, I can't really think of anything stronger than nitpick. But I don't think Perfumer is a very strong character. I feel like we didn't get enough of Raz. She just appears in one episode and is gone. I feel like maybe they could have been a little bit more. I mean, obviously, I feel like she's obviously going to come back in season 2. But I felt like there was the fact we got so little of her in season 1.
Yeah, that's the old witch, right?
That's right. Yeah, but even then, like, I don't know where else she could have just popped up. Maybe during the whole like where she's in the old ones or the ancient one like crypt where they go through the whole memory thing, and then they encounter, what's it, Light Hope her name was, the
the program, Light Hope
injection. So maybe she could have popped up then, I guess, but like I don't know, again, these are petty complaints. I'm happy with the show as it is. I guess what I mean is I see this season 1 as a small piece of a greater puzzle, and I'm looking forward to seeing the whole thing.
Yeah, you're taking it as the chunk that it is, which is good. You like take it as it is, not as what it could be, because that's also a dangerous mindset. But I think to go on with the whole Raz, I think she is actually the example, what we were talking about in the beginning, of if she was HeMan, I think that's the same emotion that we would have had. You're sort of in there for a bit, then gone. Kind of, that was encompassing what, like, if they had included HeMan just in a brief stint in the beginning, that's sort of the emotions that we sort of trigger in the same regard.
Yeah, like, as in, that's not enough kind of thing, you mean?
Yeah, or like, what is the purpose? I mean, yeah, she was like the guiding knowledge in that weird hermity way, but then never again. Like, usually, why wouldn't, maybe they were planning on having Adora go back to her for guidance, but it just didn't seem right because now she had, Glimmer and the other princesses and the queen, and so she had all these other great sources of guidance, so they didn't need to do I'm the kooky old lady who does the kooky, mysterious, garbled words that you won't understand until the pivotal moment. So maybe they didn't want to go with that.
Maybe. Which is as I said, like, I do still see this. You mentioned like the 4 seasons for 4 arc that they have planned out.
Yeah, they have 4 arcs planned out apparently.
So like, I'm content to wait and see until after those 4 arcs to then maybe be able to cast a judgment on, hey, that whole Raz character was a total waste of time. Like I'd rather wait till we've had the 4 arcs and then maybe see the potential play out. And if by that, I feel like, oh, they really didn't explore this element enough, then that, I feel like that's more of a basis to really be able to say with a hint of objection. But as it stands, I think this is a very strong first season. There's always a lot of world building you have to do with these shows, and I think they handled this very well. They drip feed all these elements one at a time, and like even like Swiftwind the horse doesn't talk until the end. Like he turns up once or twice at the very beginning, and then disappears until the end of the season, and it's like. Yeah, that's fine because like they are slowly introducing these elements. They don't bombard you episode 1 with like, here's the plethora of the characters, go. they were warming you up to the bigger, wider world as we go. And so I like that, and I will happily see continue into bigger and greater things going forward.
And I think that's also due to the fact that there's not a huge toy lineup to sell. It's like, look at all your favorite people, buy, right? So you don't need to get them all out as quick as possible. But there is also that little iguana that she blasted and turned into a little alicorn iguana. Is that guy going to come back? I want to see if that guy comes back. That little iguana dude.
Maybe.
Wonder if he'll have sentience and come back and be like, I've liberated the reptilian people. And like, what?
Will we finally see Lukey? That's the big question. Do you know Lukey?
Oh, yeah, because I believe I was watching your video again, and it's in the original series, he was like a little weird, almost like an Orko sort of character sidekick thing.
Yeah, see,
and
just a little
his image was on
in every episode. Like they actually hid him in the Raz episode, but she mentions him by name.
It was on the fan.
And I'd be interested to see if they actually. Ooh, that's a loud bling. I'll be interested to see. If that plays out in Element, do we meet those creatures? What more of the original series will they dip into and pull elements from? Because there's a lot of it telling its own story right now with this established group of characters, and I'm more than happy for them to sort of proceed with bringing original characters and original princesses and original lands into the font and mixing it into this world. But I'll be also interested to see what more of the originals will they maybe tap into and bring. Yeah,
I mean, well, because when we saw Entrapta had made the monitor of the globe of Eternia, and you saw the red garnet or the black garnet was the red light on it, and then there was a bunch of smaller green lights around the entire place. I wonder if there are going to be other kingdoms that we still have yet to find, because there were even when Light Hope was showing Adora all the princesses around her, I don't know if every single one of those characters we had identified yet. So there's definitely probably going to be something coming down the line of new princesses, hopefully. Or maybe just fleshing out some of the current ones we have, because my big nitpick for the show is actually two small nitpicks. But one is that they didn't utilize all the princesses in a good way. Mermista kind of shows up, does a couple things. She's got that very whatever attitude, which I hope they sort of break down in the next season, because I would like to see her be more open and more expressive rather than just be the whatever character. Because I've never attuned with whatever characters. I don't like them. I think they're just sort of a hindrance rather than a help. And then at that point,
she's very dry, straight man kind of.
Yeah, right. Very minimal words.
Kind of character.
Yeah. I mean, even if they're like I'm brooding and suffering, it's another dimension. But if they're just the whatever character, it's like, okay, you're here to dispense your water power. Okay, show up, go, bye. No one cares, right? Because you don't care about anything, right? But so even Frosta has her couple moments, but I hope those lesser princesses sort of get their moment to shine in the upcoming seasons. But the big thing that it bugs me, and it doesn't matter at all. It's not a thing that hurts the show, and it really shouldn't matter, but I just don't like the shoulder pads on Adora or SheRa. They just bug me for some reason, and it's stupid, and I know it's a me thing, and I'm not going to say, the show is terrible, because look at those stupid 1980s Elaine from Seinfeld shoulder pads, right, I'm not gonna hold it, but it's a nitpick that I watch and I just go, man, can you take your jacket off again and just wear the white shirt? Those shoulder pads just
why is Adora still wearing her Horde uniform? I know
with just the slashed off emblems.
I know it's like a tribute to the original SheRa costume, but it's logically you'd have probably taken that off by now if it's the clothes of the enemy.
Yeah, maybe Glimmer or Bo or somebody made her a new jacket. That'd be so cool. She has a new jacket that's got the Bright Moon logo on it or something. That'd be awesome.
I guess the SheRa costume is a transformation, so she could have alternate transformations down the line, maybe a line.
Well, in the final episode, her breastplate turned gold.
That's true. Yeah, it turned all gold. Yeah.
So she had a small costume change there, but yeah, that was just my one big huge nitpick was shoulder pads. I don't like them, and it's bothering me, but it doesn't detract from the show. It's just my stupid brain doing stupid things that don't matter at all, and I know that. But
I guess I could say one nitpick I have. They replay the transformations every time. Sometimes it's cut down, but usually it's the full. And when you're watching if you were watching them once a week, that's fine. But when you're watching them in a big it's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna sit back for a minute and just let the sequence play out because I've seen this 13 times already. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's best now that we're in the age of the bingeable television show. If it's not a pivotal moment when she transforms, don't show it. Just have her glow, bam, quick, 1.5 seconds. You know, she glows white, the form changes, and she's right into the battle. And like, it doesn't matter.
I understand the reasoning behind it. You know, it is. It's allusion to the original series.
And the icon, the icon of it, right?
It's iconic. It is also like it's a shortcut. You know, it is to buy them some time. You know, by repeating the animation, they save a bit of time and money on that front. You know, and it exists in like Voltron as well. I've only seen the first season of Voltron, but like, in every episode it has the long-winded transformation sequences.
They do cut it down in the future. It's obviously
a common thing. It's not enough to bug me, you know, and not enough to detract from the show. It's just a nitpick.
Yeah, I mean, in Voltron, I've watched all, I think, 8 seasons now of it, because I used to like Voltron when I was a kid. I even had, like, the die-cast metal Voltron set, which I don't know where it went, but that would probably be worth a bunch of money now. But, so I like Voltron, but yeah, I think they do cut it down in later seasons when it's like, okay, let's form Voltron. And then sometimes when it's a big battle or important, then they will form, but other times I think they just sort of... I don't think it's enough that they cut it down, but yeah, when Voltron happens, it's supposed to be a big, huge thing, but maybe sometimes it's not as big or huge. Like if you're just fighting something that might be too strong for the Lions, form up Voltron real quick, bop the thing, there you go. But if it's like the big bad or somebody returns that you thought you've defeated, do the sequence, you know, build up the tension of the fight.
Yeah, exactly. Like preserve the big moments, preserve the big... Sorry, that was a big noise. Preserve the big transformation sequence for a significant moment, and otherwise it just gets a little exhausting.
Yeah, like use it, use it in the first season, right? Like you get people used to it, show them the cool thing that you've done, like the awesome transformation sequence,
or at least mix it up, have like different angles, different elements, that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all the things that I had to about SheRa here, because I mean we touched on a lot of great stuff, some stuff from your video, and just some things that I hadn't even thought about as well, which is, you know, another reason why I wanted to have you on the show, just to talk about it, because I wanted to see what other people were thinking about it, what angles they were coming from at. And there were definitely a couple really good things, Entrapta being maybe part of some, you know, ADHD or autistic spectrum sort of deal. I never thought about that. It never occurred to me. So there definitely was a great benefit to sitting down and having a chat with you today. So thank you very much for accepting my invitation.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
All right, so if people want to see more of you on the internet, where can they get a hold of you?
Well, my YouTube channel is youtube.com/Eddache, which is EDDACHE. It's a very clever, please clap. And I do silly comedy videos and video essays about cartoons and other nerdy stuff.
Oh, that's wonderful. Do you want to... maybe plug some other YouTube channel that you frequent and do maybe other content on, if you would like to?
Yes, I can do that.
I mean, if you want to. I'm asking if you want to, just because, you know, you're on there and I enjoy when you're on that show. So I
took the subtle content clue in there. I also do a lot of work. You can also find me doing a lot of work with Tom Scar. So his YouTube channel is Tom Scar. And his second channel, Dark Squidge, where you'll see me a lot more often in person. I'm more behind the scenes on Tom's, where we do silly little content videos of us playing games, doing stupid challenges, and generally having a stupid but fun time.
All right, wonderful. I just didn't want to, you know, name drop it in case you didn't want it, because I know some people they like to keep their distance, but I figured I would offer up the notion, because I do enjoy seeing you when you're on content. It's a right fun time. I enjoy the show, so I just wanted to see if that was something.
Thank you very much.
All right. So, yeah, thank you to everyone in the audience who's been listening for over 2 hours to us nerd out about some great animation, great story, and a wonderful show that I assume we both recommend you check out, and hopefully you have checked it out before now, or else, holy jeez, there's a lot of spoilers. But thank you once again, Eddie, for coming on. I truly do appreciate it. And until next time, everybody, take care. And I'm looking forward to discussing the next show, which I haven't decided on. I usually decide on it month by month, but next week or next month will be a mystery to me and you. So until next time, take care, everybody.